Okay, hi everybody. Today what we're going to talk about is the introduction or introductory paragraph. But before we get started with that, I just want to go over the format of a persuasive essay to make sure you're kind of understanding how things unfold. So the very first paragraph, excuse me, is always your introduction. That needs to start with a hook. It should have some background or bridge information, and then the final sentence in the introductory paragraph is the claim statement. We'll spend more time going over that in a minute. Then you follow it with body paragraphs. There's really no set or golden rule for the number of body paragraphs. You just want to make sure that they address all components of your claim and that they really help support in a thorough fashion what it is you're trying to prove. And then finally the conclusion paragraph, and we'll spend some time talking about that in another video. So introductory paragraphs, again, have a hook. There are going to be 4 strategies that you can use to grab the reader's attention. You could ask a question, make a bold statement, shock them with a crazy statistic, or share an anecdote or story. We'll go over those. Then some background and bridge information that transitions you into the claim, and finally the claim statement at the end of the intro paragraph. So let's break it down. Hook sentences, they need to grab the reader's attention. You've got to make that person, and especially me, your teacher, the grader, want to continue reading the essay. I grade piles of these when they get turned in, and it really makes a big difference if you have grabbed my attention in some way. So we're going to pretend that I'm writing a persuasive paragraph on the topic of why running is the best sport on earth. We've talked about that. It'll be the model for my persuasive paragraph throughout this whole example. So here's an example of each of the 4 strategies. Number 1, ask a question, right? Have you ever wondered why some people love running? And you'd say, I have wondered that. So just make the reader stop and think for a second. It's a little bit cheesy. You can tend to overuse this a little bit, so be mindful of not always relying on asking a rhetorical question. It can get a little bit old after a while. The second option would be make a bold statement, right? Running is the greatest sport on earth. Wow, that's a pretty bold statement. Some of you guys like lacrosse, some like baseball, some love swimming. I'm telling you, I think it's running. And you'd say, well, I want to see if this person can prove this. The third option would be to use a shocking statistic, right? This one says running works out 26 bones, 33 joints, 112 ligaments, and a whole network of tendons, nerves, and blood vessels. And that's just in the feet. And you'd say, whoa, I didn't even know the feet had 26 bones. So you'd want to keep reading a little bit more. Okay, so the final option for how to grab the reader's attention with your hook strategy would be to begin with an anecdote or story. Running changes lives and brings people to places that they never dreamed were possible. It's kind of like an infomercial. You may say to yourself, I want to know more about these places I never dreamed were possible. And you might get engrossed in the story or the persuasion of the piece itself. So, next thing after the hook sentence is the background or transition information. This is a really important idea because it bridges the reader from the hook, the attention-grabbing hook, toward the claim statement itself. So you use it to move the reader kind of through that first paragraph. So if I go with the hook about running works 26 bones, 33 joints, blah, 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 then my background information is going to be like this. I just say non-runners often just don't understand why some people would head out the door and subject themselves to the challenges of running. Some think it's a form of self-torture, the aches of a difficult hill or fast pace, the struggle to stay focused despite the pain or challenges confronted, the mind-numbing isolation. So again, I'm trying to bridge you from my hook. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm bridging you from my hook sentence into my claim statement by giving you a little bit more background and a little bit more of my perspective on this topic. So let's take a look at the claim statement I'm going to use. The claim statement I'm going to use for this persuasive essay on why running is the greatest sport is that running is the most pure sport on earth. It requires no equipment and pays the greatest dividends for mental and physical health. So if you take a look at this claim statement, I see 3 body paragraphs coming out of this. The first one's going to talk about how this is a pure sport and how it requires no equipment, right? It's a real basic sport. The second one is going to talk about how it pays off for mental health, right? A dividend is a payoff. And then finally, the final body paragraph, or the third body paragraph, will talk about the physical health. So this is kind of in each of those chunks, hook, background information, and claim, kind of broken up. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see how it looks as a body paragraph kind of coming all together, right? You can see color coded that the running works out 26 bones. That's my hook. You can see the stuff in kind of the light gray color, talking about how non-runners just don't get it, why people would want to subject themselves to this difficult sport, and then finally why the sport is so great, right? It's basic, it's simple, and it pays great mental and physical health dividends. So that's the structure to an introductory paragraph. Make sure as you're writing yours that you think it through, that you look at each part. So when we go into our multi-paragraph persuasive piece, I've broken them up into all of the separate parts. So the hook sentence, and I've just taken my information and put it right in here, to the background or the bridge information, right? Same sort of stuff to the claim statement. I want you thinking about each of these steps of a great introductory paragraph. Again, don't get lazy. Don't start making those hooks kind of fluffy and not that engaging. Remember, you've got to follow all of our claim rules, right? It's got to be written in third person. It needs to stand alone. It needs to be beefy enough that it can support an entire persuasive essay. It must be one sentence in length, and it must end in a period. And I've just highlighted here the topics I'm going to use for my body paragraphs. We'll do that in another video.